Oh, I am aware of how much stress can be carried around this question. Is this person a narcissist or not? You're under pressure. You've probably experienced a fair degree of gaslighting, or at the very least, confusing communication that you don't really know what to do with. So you're under pressure and you're stressed out and you just want to know, is this narcissism or is it not? Now, I'm going to help to answer that question, but I want to give you a short answer to that question up front that reframes the whole problem. Okay? My short reframe for your question, is this narcissism or not, is why are you asking? Are you asking because if yes, like it's a binary situation, if the answer is yes, this person has narcissism, this is really sad, and I can give up and walk away because I know that they really are the problem, and I know that like they just have to go to therapy, and there's nothing really I can do as a partner, as a son, a daughter, as a colleague in work or a friend or wherever the relationship is taking place. But if no, then I should keep going and I should keep trying. Brothers and sisters, gather around. In the spirit of sanity and in the spirit of compassion, let me guide you a little bit, because I have had years of my life wasted by vacillating between these two binary points. Yes, no, yes, no. They really have a psychiatric, clinically definable condition that is called narcissistic personality disorder. No, no, no. They're just a traumatized lost child. And the reason you're asking that question is you're trying to choose to leave. This is wrong. Please, please don't follow in my footsteps. Don't make the mistake that I have made for years. This is the wrong frame for the question. Now, I will give you a way in a moment. It takes a little bit longer to explain as to if you can really determine if this is narcissistic personality disorder. But my reframe at the beginning is, if you're asking this question to choose whether to give up, don't. Let me give you a different paradigm. So basically what you're doing is you're going, is this narcissism or not? Subtext, tell me if this is a psychiatric condition so that I can give up, or tell me it's not the psychiatric condition so I can keep going. And this is wrong for two reasons. One, narcissistic personality disorder is not a universally agreed upon clinical entity, even amongst psychiatrists, of which I am not one. And most of the people you follow on YouTube are not psychiatrists. And most of the people you're taking advice from and reading posts by and following the Instagrams of are not psychiatrists. It is not a universally agreed upon clinical entity. And you could say, but yes, it is. It's right there in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's in the ICD-10. That means it's universally agreed upon. No, it doesn't. It means that the vested interests in the governing bodies who put those things together for, let's say, political with a small p reasons, they're the ones who are pretending they've universally agreed upon it. But I can show you, even in the DSM-5 edition, it was written for narcissism. The chapter on narcissism was written by a committee of 22. And that committee of 22 did not agree on the specifics. So I'm telling you why it's wrong for two reasons. In scenario one, psychiatry is on a pedestal and we pray and we say, oh, wise God of psych. You think this is ridiculous, but this is what you're doing. Tell me, oh, wise Lord of psychiatry, is this a clinical condition or not? Because you're talking in Chaucerian 13th century English for no known reason. And they can't tell you because they don't all agree. They don't all agree. And even when there is a sort of a dogmatic orthodoxy where everybody kind of agrees in the middle, it's woefully naive. So if we say, actually, we all agree, everybody, psychotherapists, life coaches, YouTubers, psychiatrists, bakers, candlestick makers, we all agree that what's in the DSM is correct. Even that's really woefully naive because it's 9 equally weighted traits. That, largely speaking, falls outside of the definitions of what a personality disorder are. Okay, stop. That's reason number 1 why it's a mistake. The second reason why you shouldn't be kneeling at the altar of psychiatry and saying, tell me if this is fixable or not, is because there's another way. They can't tell you. Your favorite YouTuber can't tell you. I can't tell you. Your favorite Instagram profile can't tell you. Your favorite psychotherapist really can't tell you. And you go, well, there's a clinical diagnosis here. And I would say, so what? You believe in them? God help you. God help you. Let's take another measure. If you're going to decide, I want to leave or I don't want to leave, and that's the reason why you're asking the question, is this narcissism or no? Let's use a different measure that is finite, that is within the reach of the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, the taxi driver, the nightclub bouncer, the social worker, the nurse, the everyone. Is the person being abusive or not? Yeah. You struggle to know what abuse is, you probably need to go to therapy. If you can say, yeah, this person's being abusive. Is the person being abusive or not? Yes. Okay. So you said yes. So if no, then that's not narcissism. That's not narcissistic personality disorder. Stop asking. It doesn't matter. If yes, go to question 2. Is this a consistent pattern of behavior that's been displayed across time? Anybody can have a bad day. Anybody could be in an altered physiological state because of things that are going on endogenously or exogenously. They've taken something, or they're on a come down from a drug, or they've taken antibiotics that don't agree with them, or they've been banged in the head, or they're in some allergic, I don't know, or they're grieving. And it happens once for a few short hours. If it's that, and it's only once, then don't bother asking any more questions, because that's not a personality disorder by definition. Just can't be. Is it abusive? Is it a consistent pattern of behavior? Have you asked them to stop? And have they failed to stop? 1, 2, 3. Yes, yes, yes equals you may now leave. You may now give up. You don't have to call it narcissism, borderline psychopathy factor 2 with a drizzle of gibbledy-goo. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can leave. If you're telling an adult human being, not a child, an adult human being, you're doing a thing, it is painful for me and for others, I would like you to stop. And if they don't, you have the right to give up. You have the right to give up. Why would I even bother saying this? Because what my sense is that a lot of people who follow me are highly codependent. Not all. A lot of people struggle with issues of people pleaser syndrome. A lot of people have a highly pronounced fawn response. And the compassion, this is me. I'm talking about me, highly codependent, very strong people pleaser response. The compassion button is broken to on. If your compassion button is broken to on, like me, by the way, that isn't compassion. That's not compassion. That's not a choice. That's a neurotic response. You don't have to allow, give space, permit, just let flow with, and accept abuse from another adult. You don't have to. There's no situation in which that is morally right. And here's my concern. As we drift in our culture deeper and deeper into the swamp of moral relativism, of thinking that breaking all boundaries down is good in and of itself. Breaking some boundaries is good. Breaking all boundaries is not good. There is yin, there is yang. There are polar opposites, and they exist together in dynamic confrontation. They push and pull against each other. This is life. It holds it. Some boundaries good, some boundary breaking good. Some boundaries are bad, some boundary breaking is bad. Not all boundary breaking is good. Not all rebellion is good. Not all submission is good. Not all obedience is good. It's context specific. I kind of feel like I shouldn't really have to say this, but I can see the way in which culture is going. And this narcissistic personality disorder is undoubtedly a culture-bound syndrome. So moral relativism has taken place. The idea that breaking all boundaries down is going to lead to the most wonderful utopia. It never has. It never will. Boundaries also are good. Too much strictness becomes tyranny, and that's bad. Too much yang becomes tyranny. That ain't good for anybody. Too much yin, too much permissivity becomes degenerate. It leads to degeneration and deprivation, and that's not good. You don't want to live in a place like that. The other factor that we're facing is psychologization. We're all thinking too much psychology. Psychology, right? Psychologization is a process whereby the things that are good inside the clinic with the psychotherapist, we've gone, well, that's good. Why don't I apply that everywhere? Holding space, moral relativism, boundaryless acceptance of the client, if not necessarily the client's behavior, holding space, moral relativism, or amorality, boundaryless acceptance of the client, though even you question their behaviors, massive amounts of permissivity, and vulnerability being like a really high order value. When you are with your psychotherapist, brothers and sisters, gather round. That is good. When you are doing therapy, which is a very strange, intimate, unique process, which if it's done right, you open up with more honesty, more vulnerability, and more intimacy than you will open up to any other human being in your life. To any other human being in your life, if it's done right, with the right therapist, and you have good rapport. These things are wonderful there. Holding space, acceptance, moral relativism or no morality whatsoever, holding the client as having a constant value no matter what in a non-conditional way, so on and so forth. Vulnerability. Oh, vulnerability. The power of vulnerability. Yes. In therapy, maybe not just in a one-on-one therapy group, but in group therapy. Maybe. I'm not into it, but maybe. Okay. And then what we've done is we've gone, that was freaking great. Maybe that should be in my bank. Maybe this belongs in the hospital. Maybe the police and the army and the government and corporations should all do this. No, that's not where psychotherapy goes. That's not where psychotherapeutic principles go. And now it's in you. And you might think, well, I'm not psychologized. Everybody's psychologized. It's in it's the ideology that we swim in. We're hyper psychologized. Everybody's a victim. Everybody's a client. They have a laundry list. Now, maybe not you, but there are people that weren't like this even 10 years ago. They certainly weren't like this 30 years ago with a laundry list of mental health issues that I'm more than happy to tell total strangers about. That's why Instagram bios are just filled up with like, I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and I have this. These are not shame as they used to be. They shouldn't be sources of shame, but nor should they be proudly touted as coordinates of a person's identity. These are mental illnesses. These are not mental strengths. This is not good that you are having a maladaptive response as a human being to the pain that you've suffered, and now you don't function well in the world. Nobody should be shamed for this, but nobody should be applauded for it either. Nobody should be shamed for it, but nobody should be proudly touting it as something good. You say, well, what's that got to do with the question of is this narcissism or not? You swim in these ideological waters and you watch videos like this with this title, and you will listen to other YouTubers in this space, and you'll be like, I have to know, is this narcissism or not? Why? Why is it so important? Because I'm trauma informed. And if it is narcissism, I may leave, because the high church of psychiatry says, my child, it is a personality disorder. Your responsibilities are absolved. Te absolvo in nomine Patris et Filius et Spiritus Sancti. Go on and live your life. This is absurd. And it's also enormously disempowering. Please don't make that mistake. I've made it. I have wasted good years of my life, at least 15 years of my life now, at least 15 years of my life with this utter body water. It's nonsense. There is one measure you need to decide whether to leave or not. And this isn't about being cruel to people with mental health issues, for God's sake. It's about trying to help people who are victims of people who are mentally ill. And I don't care, like, oh, they need love too. Okay, so go to the channel where they need love. I'm dealing with the victims. Oh, you should be talking to narcissists. Well, no. Why should I do everything for everybody? I'm not capable. I'm one man. I help the victims of narcissistic abuse, of psychopathy, of borderline, of histrionic. Go make your own channels. No, you have a duty of care. No, I don't. No. This is my boundary. This is how much I am willing to give. And if you ask me to give more, I will say no, for I am a healing codependent. You all seen the movie Renfield yet? It's a silly movie. It's like a horror action comedy. There's cussing if you don't like profanity. And there's like over-the-top violent fight scenes. But the essence of the movie is really good. It's really, really good. For people who've experienced narcissistic abuse, it's good. It's funny. Plus, it has Nicolas Cage. Who doesn't love Nicolas Cage as Count Dracula, just having the time of his life being an evil Transylvanian mass-murdering psychopath? He's loving it. You should watch Renfield. You don't need to know if the actual clinical entity is present or not to make a decision about whether to move on with your life. You only need these 3 principles. Is it abuse? Is it consistent across time? Have you told them to stop and they haven't? You may give up. Give up. Give up? Oh, but Richard, I'm an empath. I'm a Buddhist. My compassion. It's not compassion. Compassion to one person in a duo, in a dynamic, is not compassion. That's neurosis. You're there also. Where's your compassion for you? You got one life. You got one life. Oh, but I just bleed compassion onto everybody like a fire hose. You're sick then. You're sick then. Go to therapy. Maybe what needs to happen in the dynamic that you're in right now, with whoever it is you're battling with or whoever it is who's hurting you, is not a question of, oh, I must decide from my cross what to do. Should I get down from the cross or should I just hang here? That's insane. Maybe you both just separately go to therapy for your separate issues as separate adults and deal with them separately. Maybe that's an option too. The idea that we're supposed to fix the childhood trauma of another adult as a boyfriend, as a son, as a daughter, as a wife, as a colleague, as a boss, as an employee is sick, mentally sick. And if you detect that in yourself, you must stop. You want to set boundaries. You want to be self-assertive. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you no. You try telling yourself no. You want to tell somebody no, start with you. We're not doing this anymore. Oh, but, I really feel like my energy, the energy of my compassion can cure them. Really? There's something special about your human attention that will cure a psychiatric clinical entity that we know comes from vicious childhood trauma. So vicious, it breaks the child's relationship with reality. And you're going to love them better? Or worse yet, people who think they can sexually love some, like with sex and love, they can make them better. Don't be a fool like me. Don't be a fool like me. I think I can track from age 30 to age 45. Those were good years. Those were good years. wasted in relationships like this. Not just with girlfriends, but professional relationships, interpersonal relationships. Thinking that I'm something special, thinking that like I'm immune, that I can be around highly narcissistic people, diagnosed narcissists, and it's not going to hurt me, and it's not going to affect me, and it's not going to do me damage. That, by the way, is my narcissism. That's my narcissism speaking. I'm special. I'm different. I'm selected as one who can deal with this. No, I'm just a guy. I'm just a person. I'm just a human being in socks, the same as you, same as everybody else. Don't make the mistake that I did. If it is abusive, if it is consistent, if you've asked them to stop and they haven't, don't assume that they are a wounded child who can't escape the chains and the shackles of their own suffering. Try a different assumption. This will help you. Just look at them and go, okay, they suffer as a result of their disorder. And this is an argument, by the way. If you want to get into the weeds, you want to get into the granular conversation amongst in psychiatry about the essence of the problem with narcissistic personality disorder as a diagnosis, as a diagnostic clinical entity. This is what you do. You say, if you ever meet a psychiatrist and they happen to know about narcissistic personality disorder, just say to them, is it, in your opinion, is it adaptive or is it maladaptive? Is that person suffering because of their disorder, or did only the people around them suffer because of the disorder? Because if they're not suffering from their disorder, that means it's not maladaptive. And that means it isn't really a personality disorder. That's if you want to get into the weeds and the granular, like the essence of the controversy. That's where the controversy rages, around that one issue. Now, we're not psychiatrists. Most of us are not here, doing a master's degree in psychology, trying to write a dissertation on narcissistic personality disorder, the limitations of the diagnostic criteria. That sounds like a pretty cool title, actually, if you're a nerd for the subject. We're here to get on with our lives. We're here to just live and just human again. Is this person having a good time or a bad time? No, they're having a bad time. No, they're really suffering. How do you know? How do you know that they're suffering? Just I know you've got all your thoughts and all of your emotions around the subject and around this person up until now, through the past up until now, and there's a weight to that. There's like an inertia to that. But just 1 second. Just take a breath and step back, pull focus. Is it possible that they don't really suffer? Is it possible they're actually having a pretty good time? This one question for me has been this dumb question. That's not some like psychiatric, highfalutin, verbose, multisyllabic worded question. That's a pretty simple question. Are they living their best lives? Their lives are a mess. They're kind of slovenly and their finances are a mess and physically they're a mess. And But is it possible they're actually just having a pretty good time? Is it possible that they're kind of enjoying this chaos and this mess and being a victim to some and being a predator to others? Are they kind of living their best lives? Are they trying to change? Now, if you send them to therapy and they go, okay, that's something. But if you weren't there applying pressure for them to go to therapy, are they going? Are they trying to sort out their finances? Are they trying to sort out their physical state? Are they trying to go to therapy for their condition? Are they trying to be better human beings? When there's no one looking, the charity that is offered by the Good Samaritan, when there is not one witness, is it there? Is it there? Because if it's not, my friends, if it's not, I think you can start making different assumptions about where that person is coming from. Because if you're here and you're enduring all this, you're probably trying to get better. You're probably desperate and just trying to get on with your life. Like me, desperate. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be stuck in this trap anymore. I want to get on with my life. What do I need to do? What's the work I need to put in to make this happen? And I'm doing it for me. They do what they do for the effect it has on the perceptions of others. Think about it. Now, I said I would help you determine if it is narcissistic personality disorder, something that you don't really need to know, because all you need to know is it abusive? Is it consistent across time? Have you asked them to stop and they failed to stop? That's it. You may now leave. You may now, if you can't leave, you give up hope. In fact, giving up hope is the first step. You give up hope in the relationship. Stop gaslighting yourself and letting culture gaslight you into thinking it's your responsibility to help people with mental health issues. There are highly qualified, very high IQ people with master's degrees and PhDs who are medical doctors who are out there trying to do this and failing. Meanwhile, you're holding down a job, or you're so sick from the effects of the abuse you can't work, or whatever, and you're going to try and fix this? A problem the best minds in the world, the specialists in the field, have failed to fix? You're going to fix it? No. That's not my job. I'm an adult. I live in this world, this reality. I'm stuck in this simulation right along with you. My feet also hurt, and my back hurts for no known reason. Just sometimes I just ache because the flesh suit aches, and that's it. I'm stuck in this with you. There's cause and effect within this simulation that we're all in. We all have to ultimately face the consequences of our actions. Why should it be any different for them? Oh, they're a victim. What is that? Is this a religion? Is that a religious status? Oh, they're a victim of childhood trauma. So are you. So am I. Who's crying tears of whose heart's pumping purple piss for you? Are they? No, because they're living their best life. Maybe. As it happens, when it comes to narcissistic personality disorder, if you really, really wanted to know whether it is or not, because you just didn't listen to anything I just said, and you're like, that's very, very good, Richard. Now give me the stuff I came here for. I'm not listening to that. I want to give you like 5 pointers, and they're all a little bit old-fashioned. There's a tendency within psychiatry to sort of want to do new things all the time and create new terms, which is why the DSM keeps growing. But actually, some of the old terms are better. I'm with George Carlin on this one. I actually think some of the older terms for psychiatric terminology gives you more of an understanding as a layperson for what they are. And in a sense, the terms themselves kind of become a bit vague and gaslighty, because you're like, what are we talking about now? So what I want to see, if for me to be comfortable that we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, I have a degree in psychology. That's it. There's no master's, there's no PhD. I did start out working in psychology. I worked for the prison service the probation service in Runcorn, which is a beautiful place in the northwest of England. And over the years, I worked in the British education system, and I did use my psychology degree here and there. But I spent many years working as a nightclub doorman, working as a taxi driver. I worked as a cleaner. I worked as a DJ. I worked as a personal trainer. I worked as a martial arts instructor, barman. I did all kinds of weird jobs. So what does it matter what I think? Not much, unless you kind of think, oh, I like the way he thinks. I'll think like this as well, see if it works for me. Here's some old-fashioned ideas. Here's 5. I want to see egomania. Egomania is an old psychiatric term we don't use enough. I want to see it. So that means the person needs to be extraordinarily self-involved. Their ego comes first and foremost. If you slight their ego, if you slight their precious, bloated, hypersensitive sense of self, they punish you for it. I want to see fantasy. Fantasy has it's developed like a sexual overtone over the years, but previous to the 60s, fantasy literally just meant like an image or an archetype or a delusion or a daydream that you fondly held inside of your head. I want to see them actively engaged in fantasy. So they are fantasists. They live a fantasy life and they force the fantasy on other people. That's the second old-fashioned term. The third old-fashioned term is psychopathy. And you go, no, psychopathy is modern. Wait, I'm talking about the way we used to talk about psychopaths way, way back. We first started talking about psychopathy back in the 1850s, where in asylums, had like cold water dunking, and there were some of them, were not all of them, but some of them like torture chambers. They would like put people inside of human-sized washing machines, a big wooden drum, and roll them, thinking they could just beat the crazy out of them. So those psychopaths, when they said psychopathy back then, they meant moral degenerates. They meant moral degenerates. So if in London or Paris you had some big stinky horror movie asylum, and there was a woman who was addicted to gin, and she turned to prostitution to feed her 5 illegitimate children, she would have been considered a psychopath because she was a moral degenerate. It's the person with no morality. So why would the pickpocket, why would the kid, I don't know, the 16-year-old kid you're thinking about hanging in 1872 because he's starving and he stole a loaf of bread for his mates, why is he considered a psychopath? Because there's like religion associated with it. Because if he was of a good Christian demeanor and he had a moral sense of right and wrong, he wouldn't have taken the decision to steal somebody else's resources for his own gain. So therefore, he would be classed as a psychopath. Psychopathy has always historically been associated with criminality. So why am I saying psychopath here? You show me a narcissist or a suspected narcissist, I need to see psychopathy, which means 2 things. I need to see a total lack of morality, no care whatsoever for right and wrong, and I need to see boundary-breaking criminality. 4th thing, I want to see psychosis. This is a little bit controversial. It's just my dumb opinion. It's just the dumb opinion of a YouTuber. Psychosis. We're not talking enough about the psychotic element of narcissism. Narcissism can only take place inside of a psychotic level of delusion. And actually what they're doing is they're living inside of psychotic delusion because they're not always screaming and yelling and, battling people who aren't there and having full-blown auditory hallucinations. We go, well, that's not psychosis, but it is. It's the extreme end of emotional dysregulation based in trauma, usually. Maybe there's a genetic or a drug element to it. It's an argument for other people. I don't really care. So it doesn't interest me all that much. But the person is now so intensely emotionally dysregulated that the body and the brain is not functioning anymore. The hormonal system isn't functioning anymore. The HPA axis is dysregulated. They're not perceiving reality as it is, nor do they want to. So it's kind of like a self-willed psychosis at times where they take chunks of reality, the bits of reality that they want, and they form them into their own psychotic delusion. Then they'll take a human being and they'll jam them inside of that stew, psychotic stew as well, which you'll know the experience of. If you've been with somebody who you think has a narcissistic personality disorder, you will have been forced to live inside of their psychotic stew, which is extremely suffocating. It's blinding. It gets in your ears and it stinks. The 5th thing I want to see, which is an old-fashioned term, and some people would say this has got nothing to do with psychiatry, is con artistry. I don't think that you can show me somebody who has a narcissistic personality disorder who isn't a smarmy, charming, fast-talking, usually funny, image-throwing con artist. The con is the image. The con is the big lie. I am this, they say I am this, and through that they lure people in to the narcissistic relationships to exploit them and to con them. So I snuck another one in there. I said 5, but I need to see exploitation. Well, I'm not going to see exploitation. I'm going to see exploitation if I see psychopathy, criminal behavior, and immorality, and I have con artistry there as well. But none of that matters, because what I want you to stick to is I want you to forget about this obsessing over is it or isn't Schrodinger's wife, Schrodinger's husband, Schrodinger's mother-in-law. Is she, isn't she a narcissist? It doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse. If they are abusive, the pattern of abuse is consistent across time. And if you or somebody else has asked them to stop and they keep going, that's it. You can give up on them. You don't need to kneel at the altar of psychiatry and say, tell me, high priest of psychiatry, is this or isn't this narcissistic personality disorder? I did that in 34 minutes and 27 seconds. I'm enormously proud of myself. Now we shall move to the Q&A section. You can ask me whatever you want. Oh, God. Oh, God. Please, no. Are all cluster Bs basically narcissistic personality disorder? I think the superstructure of the cluster B is psychopathy, not narcissism, but maybe. So I would take, there is something called BPD. I don't want to get into the BPD thing because people who've been misdiagnosed with BPD start going nuts over it. I think most people who've been diagnosed with BPD just have CPTSD or PTSD. PTSD and CPTSD easily accounts for their strange behavioral quirks and their self-destructiveness and the interpersonal turbulence and all the rest of it. Sorry, excuse me. I think it's easily covered for by that. So BPD, if it was me, I wouldn't. So when you're talking about BPD, that is a distinct thing from narcissism and psychopathy, but I don't think it is what most people think it is. So I split BPD. If you're not entitled and exploitative, that ain't BPD. That's CPTSD. If you are entitled and exploitative, we have a term for that. It's vulnerable narcissism. And you might say, but how do you account for all the emotional dysregulation? Well, contrary to popular belief, narcissists are highly emotionally dysregulated, and it's easily covered by narcissism. But above all things, we're talking psychopathy. There has to be a fundamental break with empathy, with morality for this to work. Now, people who are not listening to me properly will have just heard Richard Grannon just said everybody with BPD has narcissism and psychopathy. It's not. I don't think there is a distinct clinical entity called borderline personality disorder. That's not me being a weird fringe YouTuber. There's plenty of proper people like clinicians and psychiatrists who agree with that. And there's published research that backs that up. We probably need to get rid of borderline personality disorder, and the proper placement of it would be, does the client display these symptoms, the self-harm, the rage, the numb, the fear of abandonment? Okay, that's PTSD and CPTSD. We can treat that with DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Are they highly entitled and very exploitative and enormously abusive to other people, plus quite arrogant about it and showing a lack of empathy? We have something for that. It's called vulnerable narcissism or covert narcissism. You made me say a bad thing, Mr. Jake. I'm going to be in so much trouble. You watch the comments. Like, what are you saying about people? What does bad therapy look like, and to what extent is it worse than none at all? Bad therapy is being gaslit into believing. Bad therapy is tainted by the ideological infection of the therapist, where they start to bring their own strange belief systems to the client. And it's very, very hard for a human being not to do that, to keep the therapeutic process clean. In fact, you should probably expect that you're not going to. And the therapy should account for the fact that the therapist has brought their prejudice and their perceptual filters to the therapy. But for example, I think it's okay. Someone I know is writing a book, and it's about a girl who gets pregnant to a man who's not a good man and she doesn't want to be with, but she has religious beliefs and she doesn't want to terminate the pregnancy. And she wants to make a decision, and she's finding it very, very hard to do. So she goes to a therapist in a country where people are fairly religious. And in response to the religious orthodoxy of that country, there's an awful lot of new age and spirituality as like a counter movement to the religious orthodoxy. She goes to a female therapist who says to her with a straight face, have the baby, step into your feminine energy and your feminine strength, and you will change his behavior so that he becomes a good father. It's just a book. No therapist ever said that to a person I know in the last week. That's an example where no therapy would have been better than some. Questions, please, ending in question marks. Do codependents have a broken relationship with reality? No, except for the reality of love, except for the reality of intimate relationships. They do. But with the rest of reality, no. Codependents will have a pretty accurate assessment of what's going on. which is why they tend to be more depressed. Because they're like, my life actually sucks. I'm actually losing opportunities here. I'm losing years here. I'm having the piss taken out of me here, and they're aware of it. They don't have narcissism is like a warm jacket in winter. It's insulation. It's a layer of insulation that protects you from the cold, harsh reality of the world. You'd be like, a narcissist is very, very good at reconstituting reality to tell them what they want to think about themselves. If their narcissism is functioning, inverted commas, if it's functioning. If it starts to fail and starts to dysfunction, then reality creeps in and they can become enormously depressed and can start to fall apart. We've got a lot of men in the chat today. Nice to see you chaps. It's unusual. I'm happy to see it. And asking questions too. Richard, what is the role of Echo in Narcissus? Is the dyad aspect of narcissism being underreported or unpopular? Maybe. Depends what you mean, like in the clinical literature or online. In the clinical literature, it's addressed a lot. Online, it's not as addressed because the reward system on social media, like YouTube and Instagram, is going to be tell your audience what most of them most want to hear. Get more views, get more shares, get more likes. So anything like what I do, which is like people who stick with me for a while, they're used to me putting the responsibility back on them and internalizing their locus of control rather than externalizing it. Just be like, oh, I'm just a victim of something. Okay, you're a victim of something for sure. But let's talk about our role, our place in this. So in answer to your question, I would say online, yes. In the clinical literature, no, not really. It's addressed quite a lot because it's not 2002, it's 2023. And there is an awareness that, like, in order for these narcissistic relationships to play out in a sort of a classical way, you need a fair bit of compliance. You need a fair bit of, it's not consent. It's like, what did Chomsky call it? Manufactured consent. You need a lot of manufactured consent, which requires a dyad where, yes, you are showing up as Narcissus, but if I don't show up as Echo, well, why am I not just telling you to piss off? Okay. I'm trying to keep up with what you're saying. Is bipolar now the same as BPD? No. Or is bipolar now called histrionic? No. Or are they all different? They're all different. Bipolar, histrionic, and BPD are three separate clinical entities. BPD and histrionic both go in the cluster B. Bipolar does not. How do you define entitlement and exploitativeness? Well, men in the chat. The way it is defined in the dictionary, I don't have a special definition for it. The orthodox way, the standard way. As these are qualities to some degree that I think, if spoken truthfully, we're all capable of. No. See, you're doing it. You're doing this weird moral relativism thing and saying, no, we all kind of, no, we don't. We don't. If you're entitled, that's you. That's not everybody's entitled. No. That's you. That's just you. Everybody's exploitative. That makes it okay when I'm exploitative. No. Just you. No, they're not qualities that, if spoken truthfully, we're all capable of. That is not true. Hey, Rich. It just looks like I'm choosing men now. Please have a sentence that ends in a question mark. I'm way more likely to choose it if it's one or two sentences ending in a question mark. The guys are coming up with well-structured questions. That's why I'm choosing them. A lot of the women are making more statements. But if you write like a sentence with a question mark, I'm going to answer it, or I'll more likely to answer it. Richard Gurgley. Hey, Rich, is it possible to remain in the same town as a narcissistic ex? Of course. Will they spend the rest of their time trying to ruin your life? What to do? They may not. It depends on whether they find a new source of supply. What to do? Move? Or can you suggest a strategy? I cannot. I can only suggest that you find ways to diminish the narcissist significance in your own life, because if they're very significant as a result of the trauma that they've put you through and the result of the trauma bond, a Facebook post could have the same impact. A nasty Facebook post could have the same impact on your central nervous system as someone kicking your front door in. So that's a therapeutic issue. You want to diminish them to their rightful place, which is one of irrelevance. I can't answer anymore, man, because it's just going to look crazy. Which disorders are very sensitive to being criticized? I don't know. I stay within the cluster B disorders, and all cluster B disorders are sensitive to being criticized. Narcissism, particularly. Have you worked with family case studies? Nope. Would you? No. How do you feel? Good. Thoughts on the reason for the explosion of narcissism? There is an explosion of narcissism, apparently. Whether it's an explosion of narcissistic personality disorder, I don't know. But as an explosion of trait narcissism, I think the published literature is pretty definitive on that. Why? Two things. Consumer capitalism thrives on egomania and self-centeredness and a lack of empathy and materialism and a lack of spirituality and a lack of unity. It also thrives on hyper-competitiveness. We live in a highly psychologized culture that's morally relativistic. It's very focused on trying to make other people envious. So we don't stop evil. Like it's not cool now to say no to people being bad. What's cool now is being forgiving of people who are being bad. You can't say bad. Yes, I can. It's called moral philosophy. Do they always try to come back? Not in my experience. A lot of people told me that they do. In the last incidents that I have it, yes, like very determinedly. But then in the time before, no, it just ended and that was it. Tara says, what happens when not staying away with restraining orders, non-harassment on witness protection violations? I don't understand the structure of that question. What happens when not staying away with restraining orders? When who? The person who's had the restraining order put on them? You would need to speak to your lawyer about that and possibly local police. Why did they destroy your self-image? Why did they destroy my self-image? They did it it breaks my boundaries. It breaks my will. It disturbs my ability to distinguish right from wrong, which of course works very well for them. It means that I'm beaten down and I stop saying no. And if I do say no and leave, I'm very likely to not find it easy to move on, which would create more narcissistic injury for them if my self-image is like really irreparably damaged. Plus, cross your boundaries. Oh, you mean one? Why do they cross your boundaries? Because it helps to damage the self-image. It helps to damage the sense of self. I don't. How do you make sure you set more boundaries so I don't cross them? Why did they destroy your self-image plus cross your boundaries? How do you make sure you set more boundaries? So if you don't want your boundaries being crossed too much, you really, whatever the thing is that you want to have strong boundaries around, you need to highly value it. So if you don't highly value yourself, that is a pretty deep psychological problem. Richard, you have sliced up narcissism, CPTSD, and borderline beautifully. Can you please slice up antisocial and psychopaths? I could, but I don't want to do it tonight because I'm 49 minutes in. I'm probably looking for an out within the next 5-7 minutes. It's an interesting topic. It's interesting in a different way. So here, narcissism is interesting because we get to nerd out on like the structure of the narcissistic personality disorder and the narcissistically abusive relationship. There's much less going on with psychopaths, which is why I'm always like surprised when people love watching stuff about serial killers and criminals and delve into the mind of, and it's like, delve into what? There's nothing here. Is there anything more shallow than the mind of a violent psychopath? And people are like, oh my God, it's so mysterious. What's the mystery? The guy was a narcissistic psychopath who was dumped at university on a law course by a pretty lawyer who was a brunette who parted her hair in the middle and it went like this because it was the 70s and that was the look back then. So because he was angry with her, he found other law students who looked like that with brunettes and parted their hair in the middle, and he beat them to death. That's not interesting. I don't want to say, oh, wow, he's evil, but he's interesting. Let's focus on him. No, he's a moron. He's a knob. Kill him in the most cheap and expedient and rapid way that you possibly can, in a humane way, and let's forget about him. Let's just forget about these people. They're nothing. They are just slabs of evil. They're nothing, and there's nothing interesting about them. So the antisocial psychopathy issue is interesting, not from a structural point of view, because there's nothing there. They're like robot. They're like the Terminator. But it's interesting to see how we have built narratives around psychopathy, and we felt it necessary to be like, oh, psychopath, oh no, sociopath, oh, it's a mess, antisocial personality disorder. That's interesting, but that's more from like an internal politics with a small p point of view. But I would do it. I would be happy to do it. Can a narcissist truly love and care about their pets? No. No. Can children of narcissists abuse on behalf of their parents and not be a narcissist themselves? Yes, they can be instrumentalized and motivated to do things that they don't want to do, because to some degree, they will be inside of the narcissistic fantasy. And they may even tell themselves that what they're doing is good, that the persecuted person who's been outgrouped from the cult of one, in the personality. Oh, I need to finish in the family unit, really is evil. Scapegoating. They're assisting with scapegoating, and in other contexts, they may be, reasonably normal, moral people, but such is the sway that the charismatic, convincing con artist, psychopath, psychotic narcissist has over them, and the fantasy that they've pulled them into is that yes, they will, unfortunately, if they have weak minds, if they read a lot of Nietzsche and go to the gym and wake up early, then that wouldn't happen. Why aren't more therapists trained in trauma therapy? All therapeutic modalities help people to deal with trauma. There's no therapeutic modality that doesn't deal in trauma. So there's no psychotherapist who isn't engaged in trauma therapy. How important is it to fix gaslighting yourself to your recovery? Oh God, yes, very, very important. That's why I'm a fan of teaching people to do something that they don't want to do because it sounds old-fashioned and boring, which is you have to redevelop your own moral philosophy. Why? So that the muscles of right and wrong and discernment between the two grow stronger day by day over time, so that you can be like, okay, if I now know what is right and what is wrong, what's the next thing I'm going to be able to determine? That which is real versus that which is not real. Developing a moral philosophy affects and improves your ability to think critically. Thinking critically means that you're thinking critically about your own thoughts. You're thinking about your own thinking. You're challenging your own thinking. So instead of just saying, well, I feel this way, and so it's true, you start using a bit of the Socratic method, and you'd be like, what's the evidence for that? How do I know that that's true? And you can start challenging your own thoughts. So yes, it's very important. Hello, Richard. How can I help my narcissistic friend to heal and be stable? You cannot. If the other human being wishes to go and see a specialist in therapy, then they may. But you as a friend can do nothing. Can narcissist people turn really nasty? Yes. And damage your property like your car and belongings? Yes, they can. Some research I read indicated that the more violent end of narcissism is actually, counterintuitively, the vulnerable rather than the classic grandiose end. There was even suggestion that if they were going to engage in domestic violence, including physical abuse towards animals and children, that's actually more of a vulnerable, covert narcissistic tendency. Can we do this again at hours conducive to human health, please? I don't know where you are in the world. There is a globe, and the sun spins around it, and people are in different places. And I don't know, for the UK and America, this is okay. But if you're in Australia, sucks to be you. That wasn't an Australian accent. That was vaguely Kiwi. Oh, that sucks to be you, bro. Oh, that sucks, hey. Oh, I'm sorry, G. Oh, I'm sorry, docs. Can children... Yes. Yes, I answered that tonight. How is your knee? Much better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can you please help me to understand what solipsism is? Solipsism, well, you should look up a dictionary definition. Let's do that together. Bonnie lassie, will ye gang and share with me? Hildy lang. Love. Oh, solipsism. Join us as we gang to join yon band of shearers. You will see the theory that only the self exists or can be proved to exist in philosophy, and also the extreme preoccupation with an indulgence of one's feelings and desires, egoistic self-absorption. So when the person is coming from a purely self-referential place, in a very self-indulgent, slovenly, non-critical way, very emotional and subjective, generally would say, or as I would say, that's a very solipsistic way of viewing reality. You've got to take on externals. You've got to gather data. You've got to look for 56 minutes and 54 seconds. Brain not braining. You got to look for... Please hold. Please hold. You've got to look for external feedback. Yay. What is bipolar then? It's not my thing. You should ask somebody for whom it is their thing. Ooh, when are you doing a karaoke video, Richard? Yeah, just Scottish and Irish folk only. Here we are. We're at the end of the session. Right, you can ask me stupid questions only now. Everton or LFC, I don't like football. I think it is bread and circuses for the masses. It's just another tax on the working class. I think it is silly and a waste of time. I used to do security for the Liverpool football team from time to time, which was fun, I guess, when I was 22. 23 long years ago, Frodo Baggins. So yeah, I don't like it. I like the fighting, I like the punching and the Muay Thai and the MMA, but even that, like, I don't really know who the fighters are now. I can't be arsed watching sport. Can't be arsed. Smelly, yes, probably. What do you think? How do you realize how important you are? Every day, man. Every day I say that to myself. You matter, man. You matter. Do you think the Sting song Shape of My Heart is about a narcissist? I haven't heard the lyrics, but there are many songs about narcissists when you penetrate the lyrics. Do you have a girlfriend? Stop being cheeky. What do you put on a fish finger sandwich? If I was going to, red tomato sauce, blondes or brunettes. I just love everyone, man. Everybody is cool with me. Brunette. Sorry. What? Long live martial arts. Absolutely, Johan. What do we love? All the martial arts. Favorite ice cream? Yeah, don't know. Cookie dough. What is triangulation and why do narcissists? Wider. Why does the wider narcissist do that? It's layman's terms, playing people off against each other would be the quickest and easiest way to look at that. Can you come to USA? I was supposed to earlier this year, but in June, and then I got like physical problems. I got quite sick physically, and then got sick mentally because I wasn't sleeping. And that was that. Without the accent, please. What did I do? What did I do with an accent? So it's 59 minutes, 56 seconds. We're going to have to finish soon because it's just going to become drivel. Please come to Australia. I would love to. When is the music video with Picky out? I don't know. I'll ask Picky Mickey. I'll send him another message. Star sign. Oh, yeah. What does genuine regret look like in a narcissist? There shouldn't, if it's narcissistic personality disorder, there will be no genuine regret. Richard, how's your health now? Sending positive vibes. Better, thank you. Come to Boulder, not Denver. Huh. Where's Boulder then? If it's not in Denver, that's interesting. Justin says, Justin, front squats or back squats? Don't be sick. I mean, I'll try a front squat, but look at my forearm and my bicep back like this, up with the elbows like this on my. It's really unpleasant. There's some variation. Somebody told, I don't like it. I really don't. I don't like squatting at all. But if I have to do it, I'll back squat. What do you think about the book, The Giving Tree? I haven't read that. Liz says, hey, Richard, you're so insightful and help me understand the chaos and trauma I've endured. Can you tell us more about dealing with an ex who has borderline personality disorder and some MPD? I could do, but I won't be doing it tonight. We're into the final few minutes. I did a bit on dealing with MPD at the beginning of this video. It's going to upload and be playable back playable, play backable. So you'll be able to watch that. Do you think there's a demonic aspect to narcissism? Yes, probably. Yes, why not? There's definitely like a fight between good and evil going on north of Denver. What is it? Oh, I'm being stupid. So there's Boulder, Colorado, and I thought Boulder was in Denver, but it's not in Denver. It's just another town. Yeah, okay. Favorite type of deadlift? Oh, not doing them at all. Romanian. Just a little Romanian was enough for me. But unfortunately, we start new coaching this week, and I will be deadlifting, and it would be conventional. I have never done a sumo. I would never do a sumo. Or I would try like a kipping one, a CrossFit style kit. No, I'm joking. A conventional one. But up until now, I've just been doing Romanians for a long time. Can you explain the difference between lying, confabulation, and gaslighting? Because self-aware narcissists said narcissists don't lie. They lie non-stop. The self-aware narcissist that said that narcissists don't lie was lying when he said that. All Thebians are liars, said the Thebian. Does it go like that? Is that the logical? Anyway, no, he lied when he said that. To confuse you and to keep you trapped. And he knew he was lying. He knew he was lying when he said it. She's saying Boulder is better than Denver. Yes, I got that. It's that I didn't know where Boulder was. I thought Boulder was in Denver. I'm a bit tired. I've been to Denver. I flew out of Denver and there's a very, very high icy cloud. So we did about 45 minutes of fairly rough flying. And even the pilot apologized. He was laughing. Oh, the bell is ringing. One moment. That's the end. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all very well. And please be kind to yourselves. Don't take everything I've said as gospel. Take it all with a pinch of salt. Use your own brains. And thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your time and for your attention. And I'll be doing more lives. So I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Cheers.